Okay. Okay, hi everyone. We're here with actually Katya Yefimova live in our globalist office. We had some technical difficulties and she was nearby, so it was convenient. We just had her pop by. So to give everyone a little background on what we're doing today, it's Give Big, it's a live variety show webcast. And today what we're doing is having a guest on and talk about some specialty they have and encourage people to give big at seattleglobalist.com/givebig. And we've had an amazing show of support so far. We've raised over $3,000 just since midnight this past night. It's incredible. It's really awesome. And so Katya is here. She's an incredible journalist and a writer for The Globalist. She's done some really cool articles for us and is going to be talking about what's called dark tourism. And so travel season's coming up. So it kind of makes sense to kind of give some tips for those who are traveling to places that have these kind of spots where historically dark things have happened, natural disasters, conflict, these sorts of areas. And Katya is really well traveled in these types of places. So Katya, do you want to give a little introduction to what we're going to be talking about today?
Yeah, I would like to discuss dark tourism, which is visiting places of violence or disaster, and just sort of the ethical issues that surround that. And also poverty tours, which includes visiting slums. If you're going to any developing countries, probably you're going to be invited on a tour to visit the local slum. And so there are I think there are ethical issues surrounding that as well.
Yeah, and so if any point you want to ask Katya a question, you can tweet us at #I'mAGlobalist right up here. And I actually have that pulled up in right now, so once you tweet it, I can ask a question right away to Katya. Katya, let's talk about maybe we can show some photos that you sent me, and we can just talk about what the stories behind those photos are.
Sounds good.
Let me pull those up right quick. And so, and you can just kind of, should we just kind of go through them one by one and just talk about what we're looking at?
Yeah. Is this how I would move through the photos? This is one of the photos that my husband and I took in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, in the Tuol Sleng prison, which used to be a school. And during the Khmer Rouge regime, it was turned into a prison where thousands of people over the years were killed and even tortured. And now there's a very well-maintained memorial there, and we visited. So that's where my experience that's where most of my experience with dark tourism is from, is Cambodia. And we might think that it's not that controversial to visit a place where a tragedy took place. But I think there are two things that we as travelers need to think about. First of all, I think it's important to think about your intent. Are you visiting because you want to bear witness to history and you want to pay respects to the survivors and the victims, or are you visiting to gawk? And I think that's important. And so in Cambodia, the sites of the Khmer Rouge legacy actually are the #2 most popular tourist attraction after the Angkor Temple complex. And I think the other thing that we need to think about as travelers going to these places is the context. So if you're thinking about visiting a place where a tragedy took place, even if it is a memorial, find out about the context, find out about who will be benefiting. In Cambodia, the government runs these memorials, and the government openly said several years ago, why not profit? Why not profit from our history and make our country better? So you may agree with this or you may not agree. The government is actually, from what I've read, not contributing money to the victims and the survivors' families. So as a visitor, you should be aware of that, I think, as an ethical visitor. And I really believe that how we act, decisions we make, will determine how these memorials are going to be run. Are they going to be managed respectfully or not? And it's going to determine what the government is going to do, or the local organization that's in charge of the memorial. Are they going to share money with the survivors, or how they will maintain that legacy.
And how does someone, when they're planning a trip to a place like this, how do you go about researching that? What are the places to look at? How does someone find out who's benefiting from dollars spent on tourism?
Well, I think usually the first place to start is just your travel guide. My husband and I, when we traveled, first used Our Lonely Planet, and then went from there. If you just look up, do an online search for, the main nonprofits working in the area, you'll be able to get a hold of that information. And it can be hard to track down in nonprofits, to vet nonprofits in developing countries, but usually online forums and your travel guide and other nonprofits can give you a pretty good idea of whether an organization is doing a good job, whether a memorial is well maintained. And another thing I would like to say on the subject, and I have a photo.
Should we hold this?
Thank you.
Let's see,
I would like to show this photo. This is a gentleman who was one of only 7 people who survived the Tulsa prison. And he had published a book and was outside the memorial, and he was talking to visitors and selling his book. And my husband and I met him and talked with him, and we purchased the book. And I think when you're traveling and visiting a place of tragedy, look for a way to put money into the hands of the local people, to support the local community, and to find out more about what happened there, and to show your respect, which was what we tried to do. Hopefully that was the right thing.
And in this example specifically, how did the locals feel about that type of tourism? I'm assuming there's a lot of pros and cons with the industry and the dollars coming in, but also kind of the tourism around something that was a very dark point in their history. What was kind of the sense that you got from the locals there?
Yeah, that's very true that it's a controversial subject. However, in Phnom Penh, the people seemed very happy to see people coming in and learning about their history, because Cambodia is still raw and recovering from the atrocities that happened in the 70s, and people wanted to share their stories. They wanted somebody to listen to what happened to their family, and these memorials were a way to pay respect. And still, it was very clear that local people are very emotional about what happened, and it's still very important to them to talk about this. When we were visiting the prison, our Cambodian guide, our local guide, at some point she was telling about what happened in the prison, and she just started crying, sharing those stories with us, and that was, I think, that represented the feelings of most of the local people. On the other hand, right now the Cambodian government is working on establishing another Khmer Rouge memorial, and I think that they're working on another. It's in a different part of the country, and I believe that working to make available Pol Pot's home, the Khmer Rouge dictator's home, as well as a place that was formerly used as a camp, a concentration camp of sorts. And some of the people who live in the area now are being displaced. This is the information that I read in an article in The Atlantic, part of the research that I did before traveling. So those people being displaced from that place, from that area, are obviously not happy about the memorial coming there. To them, it feels like, these people were quoted in the article, it feels like just bringing back the ghosts and not letting them move on. And this is all in the hunt for tourist dollars.
And for those who are maybe just joining us, we're talking with Katya Yefimova, who is a really experienced international journalist and writer, especially for places that have quote-unquote dark tourism. And I want to, and for anyone who wants to ask questions live, we can Katya, right, and actually we just got one that came in from Christian Zerbal. Oh wait, this may be a quote. It says, "When traveling and visiting places of tragedy, look for ways to put money in the hands of local people." I thought that was a really great quote and a really smart thing to look out for. And if you guys want to ask questions live, do it at this hashtag I'm a globalist. And I want to share, actually, it's maybe a little bit of a diversion, but the article you wrote for The Globalist on interacting with children in the global south. So let me pull that up real quick. And I thought you just gave some really interesting tips. Could you talk a little bit about what those tips are?
Right. This article talks about interacting with children when traveling in the developing world. And the most important thing, well, first of all, let me say, this depends very much on the individual country you're going to and on the age of a child, and it's very much on a case-by-case basis, and you should do a lot of research into the place you're going to. But overall, the most important takeaway for me was to avoid giving money to children, to avoid buying things from children, because as we found out when actually traveling in Cambodia, parents oftentimes take children out of school to use them to sell trinkets to make money. You, as a traveler, if you want to support local families, go and support family businesses. Don't do business with children. It's in general not a good practice. If children are begging, try not to give to them. It's very hard, but it will only be worse because these children, again, instead of being in school, they are on the streets begging, trying to support their family. If you want to support children in the developing world, find a nonprofit in the place you're visiting and give to them. That your money will go much further and will do lasting good to the local children and their families.
I thought that was a really great tip too when I read that article. It was one of those things I really hadn't thought about it in that way, and in the moment you think that you're actually really being helpful in that.
Right. Yeah.
A good thing
it's the thing to do. A child is asking you for something, and you want to help. You want to make friends. Another one, and that's kind of tricky, is which is a lot of people really want to do. A lot of people really want to do this with children, is to give them little presents. Small presents, even like things like art kits or pens. And I'm not going to say that that's always a bad thing, but from feedback that I got while traveling and nonprofits that I researched for tips on dealing with this stuff, they say that in general, lean on the side of not giving things to kids because that will encourage them in the future to beg. And you don't want to start the culture in them. Treat them as humans. Treat them like you would your friend's child, your neighbor's child.
And Katya, so we're running, fortunately we're running low on time. We want to know though what you love about The Globalist and why people should give big to the Seattle Globalist and to writers like yourself who write for us.
Well, I don't know where to start really. The Globalist is a great organization, and I'm a globalist because I think international journalism is worth supporting and worth encouraging. And through international journalism, through the Seattle Globalist and other great organizations like it, we will come to better understanding, of the world, and to a better world.
Okay, so we're coming back live real quick because we had a question come in over Twitter from Forrest Baum, and we aim to please with The Globalist. We want to answer all the questions that come in. Forrest asks, any tips for making ethical purchases while traveling?
Thanks for that question. That's a great question, and it's something I've been thinking about a lot. And again, I think the first place to look is going to be your guide, your guidebook. Or the guide with whom you're using while visiting. Then the second place, usually the bigger nonprofits working in the area are going to have some kind of network or some kind of seal of approval or something to show which businesses are truly supporting local families. Otherwise, if you don't have time or it's hard to...
Some balloon popping going on.
Someone just donated to The Globalist. But anyway, if another good thing is, as you are walking around in the city you're visiting, you see food stalls, and you see small businesses, people selling handicrafts that they've made with their own hands. I think if you're buying from those people, chances are that you are going to be supporting their local family business and doing them good. So I think that that's the gist of it. But if you would like to talk more about this, hit me up on Twitter. My handle is Juniper Twigs. It's on the Globalists
Yeah,
website.
we just tweeted at her handle Juniper _Twigs, and this is also, we were just talking about how it's like there's really a knowledge gap for this type of information about ethical tourism, and we hope that you continue writing about it and giving us more information and more tips on it. That's really useful information, and thank you again for having us on, and thanks for the questions, you guys.
Thank you.